The live television moment was unexpected, unscripted, and unmistakably real. In an era of politically sanitized...
Hey Donald, I have a great idea. Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV, because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
And they hired a big movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to take my place. And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster.
Commentary and carefully curated appearances, Jimmy Kimmel and Arnold Schwarzenegger team.
I think that you're a person who is trusted on both sides, and that's very rare nowadays. And I think probably Donald Trump doesn't want you to be trusted because I don't think Donald Trump likes you very much, to be honest. True? Yeah.
Arnold up on national TV and pulled no punches. In exposing the deep, chaotic truths about Los Angeles and America's increasingly volatile immigration debate, what unfolded that night wasn't just celebrity chatter, was a collision between Hollywood candor, political experience, and lived urban reality. What started as a light segment quickly escalated into one of the most unfiltered, raw, and honest public discussions on immigration, homelessness, and citywide dysfunction in years. The segment began, like any other, on Kimmel's show. Arnold was a returning guest, known for his charm, charisma, and the rare ability to straddle celebrity fame with serious political insight. But when Kimmel brought up the state of LA,
The protests that are going on
everything
in LA,
that's going on.
I totally agree with you, by the way, Jimmy, because they make it out to like it is a war zone, the whole Los Angeles, the whole city or the county. And the fact of the matter is it's maybe like 0.001% of the area of Los Angeles has problems, and there's a protest.
its overwhelmed infrastructure, the explosive growth in its homeless population, the strain on social services, and the spiraling immigration crisis, the tone shifted instantly. What followed was not rehearsed. It wasn't polite, and it wasn't party-line fluff. Kimmel, clearly frustrated, opened the conversation with a biting monologue on the city's decay. He talked about neighborhoods overrun with encampments, crime statistics quietly buried in reports, and the endless finger-pointing between local.
So I think that this is important for people to know, because I don't want all of a sudden tourism to suffer in Los Angeles because what they see on television, because the media sometimes shows it as if the whole Los Angeles is a big war zone, which isn't really the case.
No, none of Los Angeles is a war
But
zone.
this wouldn't happen if the politicians would do their work.
State and federal governments. Then he pivoted to immigration, pointing out how Los Angeles, once a beacon of multicultural harmony, was now being crushed under the weight of failed federal policies, overwhelmed shelters, and political cowardice. Arnold, sitting stone-faced, didn't flinch. Then he spoke into the audience, went silent. Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, tore through the talking points like a man unshackled by political ambition. Let's stop pretending this is working, he said. This isn't...
The media is the show where, there's some guys robbing or looting a medical marijuana store, and then there's, a few Waymos on fire, and to put that together in a montage and make it seem like all hell is breaking loose here. It seems like our president doesn't want to have this problem solved. He wants to create problems here in our state.
A red state or blue state problem. It's a leadership problem. We've created a system where no one has the guts to make hard decisions, so we let chaos become normal. He detailed firsthand accounts of immigration bottlenecks at the border, bureaucratic paralysis that turns asylum seekers into long-term homeless residents, and the heartbreaking realities he's seen while visiting shelters and encampments across LA. He spoke of city budgets being devoured by emergency response, sanitation crises, and medical care for people who have fallen through every crack in the system.
We have had a problem where they talked about immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform. But the Democrats and the Republicans, both of the parties, have no interest in solving this problem because they use that to raise money. And so what they do is they just keep pointing the finger at each other, and then they're surprised if all of a sudden we are using our middle finger on them, right?
And then, Kimmel did something rare for late-night TV. He leaned in not away from controversy, but toward it. He asked bluntly, is immigration breaking Los Angeles? Arnold didn't sugarcoat. The system is, he said. We don't have an immigration system. We have a guessing game. We say welcome, then abandon people. We don't house them, don't integrate them, don't track them, don't provide jobs or language.
I think even just when you look at the symbols of the party, think about that. I mean, the Democrats, donkey, Republicans, elephant. And the donkey's a jackass, And of course, wherever the big animal goes, leaves a pile of dump.
Training. What do we expect will happen? The crowd, clearly stunned, gave scattered applause. But this wasn't applause bait. This was uncomfortable truth delivered from two men who clearly weren't interested in towing out.
I just get very frustrated because we send those politicians to Washington to solve the problems, and all they are is instead of public servants, they're party servants. And I think this is really the bad thing about it, you know. So I mean, it's all bogus, because I think that we can do better than that. Democrats and Republicans, and you know, when they talk about Democrats and Republicans, even though I'm a Republican, I tell you, it is sometimes disappointing. And then
Ideological lines. They weren't demonizing immigrants. They were calling out the dysfunction, the staggering failure of government to manage a human crisis with competence or compassion. Kimmel then pivoted to personal experience, recounting how his own neighbors in Hollywood Hills had watched a growing camp of unhoused migrants build makeshift homes down the street. You know what scares people? He asked. Not immigrants. It's government that promises help but delivers nothing. It's leaders who say we're working on it. Well,
Someone who has experience with predators, how would you handle Donald Trump in this situation where he is threatening to withhold federal funding from our students, from our schools, from disabled students? We are a state that pays more to the federal government than we get in return from the federal government.
Multiply and people live in filth. Social media exploded. The clip went viral within hours. Some praised the honesty, others attacked it as xenophobic, but very few dismissed it. For once, two public figures weren't playing to their base. They were speaking like citizens, not spokesmen.
As an immigrant to this country, I would like to say a few words to my fellow Americans. President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet. I'm very aware of Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. It was a night of rampage against the Jews carried out in 1938 by the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys.
It resonated. Immigration activists were divided. Some called Kimmel and Schwarzenegger courageous for acknowledging the human cost of bad governance. Others accused them of fanning anti-immigrant sentiment. But the moment wasn't about blame. It was about demand for accountability, for structural reform, and for leadership that doesn't hide behind slogans. The impact was immediate. City council members in Los Angeles were inundated with calls and emails. Several were forced to address this segment during press conferences. One councilwoman admitted, "This is the conversation we've avoided for too long. When comedians and actors are more honest than elected officials, something's broken." Meanwhile, conservative media outlets jumped on the clip as
Remember when you were the governor and everything was pretty good? Everybody seemed pretty happy back then, huh?
well, I mean, no matter where I go,
People are happy?
I bring happiness.
You do.
That's my job. I'm a positive person, and I always try to kind of fix things.
proof that even liberal elites were now admitting the truth. Cities like Los Angeles were collapsing under the weight of progressive inaction. But what they ignored was that neither Kimmel nor Schwarzenegger.
He said, "Oh my God, what's going on in America right now and all this stuff." And I said to them, I said, "Relax. I've come over here in 1968 where it was a disaster. I mean, even the most fantastic country, but I came over here in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. And then after that, there was Watergate, and the thing went on and on and on, where people said, what is going on in America? And we got out of that mess. So America will always get out of this mess. And we will get out of this, believe me, this will be solved, this issue. Los Angeles will always be a great city to come to. I'm very, very proud of Los Angeles.
Schwarzenegger blamed immigrants. They blamed everyone else, the bureaucracy, the partisanship, the endless committee meetings that never lead to action. Arnold went even further during a follow-up interview the next day, reiterating, we need immigration, but we need rules. We need structure. We need a process that is fast, fair, and firm. Right now, we have chaos, and chaos hurts everyone, especially the immigrants.
The key thing here is that the federal government and the state and the locals work together to solve this problem.
They're gonna get worse.
Let me tell everyone here, I travel a lot. And I just came back from Europe. And today, as much as 50 years ago, the same amount of people come up to me and says, Arnold, please, can you help me to get to America?
They do.
Because it's the greatest country in the world. It is the best country in the world. It is fantastic. No matter who is leading it and all this stuff, People come and go, but this always will be the greatest country.
We say we care about. The backlash came swiftly, especially from political operatives who saw the moment as a threat to controlled narratives. One progressive PAC issued a statement accusing Schwarzenegger of weaponizing anecdotal evidence. But others in the immigrant advocacy space countered by saying that acknowledging the reality of suffering
And to just once again say thank you, America, for, kind of bringing me into this country and showing me this enormous generosity. Everything that I've ever accomplished in my life is because of America. That's the bottom line.
Regardless of who causes, it wasn't xenophobia, but truth-telling. As the debate raged, Kimmel used the following night's show to double down. He played new footage submitted by residents of Venice Beach, Skid Row.
The whole thing has to do with the deportation.
Yes, of
And
course.
of course, this is a very sensitive subject to me, because when I came over to this country, I was living in fear of being deported.
Were you?
Yeah, because at one point I did a movie that was so bad that I thought that the critics would deport me. Would deport me and send me back to Austria.
You were
Hasta la vista, baby!
And South Central showing massive encampments, overflowing garbage, open drug use, and desperate pleas from locals both native-born and immigrant begging for safety and help. He looked directly into the camera and said, "If you call this compassion, you're lying. What we're doing right now is abandonment dressed up as progress. And every day we pretend this is okay. We lose a little more of our city." That segment went even more viral.
That's what makes me so disappointed that both of the parties do not want to go and solve this problem once and for all and create good immigration reform. The way, like the Senator Kennedy and John McCain worked it out, and they had a really great bill there, but then they didn't go for it.
Thousands reposted it with comments like, "Truth hurts. Finally, someone says it, and you don't have to be a Republican to admit your city's in ruins." Even critics who disliked Kimmel politically had to
A comprehensive immigration reform will address all of those
include
issues.
that.
Yes, and also we would then be able to hand out more visas, temporary working permits, permanent working permits, the green card, and all citizenship, and all of those things. And we would know who comes into the United States rather than not knowing and having so many people here that we don't even know who they are and what kind of criminal activities they are participating in and all this. So it's a shame, the whole thing. We have a country that needs workers, and when you look at south of the border, they want to work. So it's a perfect match. But let's do it legal, and let's do it in a coherent way rather than doing it the way it is right now, which is a disaster. And I told you.
concede he wasn't just being funny, he was being honest. As the political class scrambled to spin, the public kept watching. Kimmel and Schwarzenegger had tapped into something raw, a cultural exhaustion with empty promises, with broken systems, with both parties passing the blame while communities suffered in silence, and they didn't offer magical solutions. They didn't pretend a soundbite would fix decades of failure. But what they did offer was a Startan unscripted confrontation with uncomfortable truths that so many politicians—
This is all dialogue. This is rhetoric. The left going after the right going after the left. I mean, the bottom line is they should get together rather than always pointing the finger at each other. They should really get together and solve this problem, because that's what the American people want. They want to have this problem solved.
have spent years avoiding. By the week's end, even mainstream national news had to acknowledge the segment. The New York Times called it a line in the sand between illusion and urgency. The Atlantic published a think piece titled "The Night Jimmy Kimmel Became the Conscience of Los Angeles," and Politico noted that the segment had forced the issue into the 2024 conversation. Whether politicians liked it or not, Kimmel and Schwarzenegger had succeeded where commissions, task forces, and op-eds had failed. They made people listen, and
No, look, when you belong to that club, you've been a governor, you know how difficult the issues are, how complicated everything is. I think the most important thing is that, people work together. Doesn't matter who it is. I always stress that the Democrats and Republicans work together, because what's going on now is politicians always try to divide us, and that's not healthy.
maybe, just maybe, they reminded America that real change starts when we stop pretending everything's fine. When we stop silencing each other in the name of optics. When we face our failures not to wallow in them but to finally fix them. In the days that followed, The aftershocks of the Kimmel Schwarzenegger segment rippled far beyond Hollywood. News outlets across the country ran wall-to-wall coverage. Liberal networks wrestled with the discomfort of their own ideological blind spots, while conservative platforms hailed the discussion as proof that the so-called woke narrative was finally beginning to crack. But at the heart of it all was a singular fact that no one could deny. Two men with vastly different careers, histories, and politics had managed to unite a divided nation, if only for a moment, around a shared truth. Something is fundamentally broken in America's largest cities, and no one in charge seems willing to fix it. Kimmel's follow-up broadcast wasn't just a continuation, it was a declaration. He opened the show with a montage of raw, unfiltered footage submitted by Los Angeles residents. Sidewalks packed with tents, school playgrounds adjacent to drug dens, immigrants huddled in makeshift shelters, and exhausted paramedics responding. 2 overdoses in broad daylight. The images weren't political, they were personal. The kind of reality that politicians tend to sanitize or frame through the lens of party loyalty. Kimmel had no interest in that. He addressed the criticism head-on. "I've been called a liberal puppet, a coastal elite, and now apparently a MAGA sympathizer," he said. "But if caring about the safety of kids walking to school, about immigrants being dumped onto the streets like garbage, and about fixing the mess our leaders created makes me a villain, then fine. I'll be your villain." The reaction was thunderous. The audience stood and applauded, and the nation noticed. Hashtags like #FixLaw, #SystemFailure, and #Kimmel Tells the Truth began trending nationwide. Dozens of Los Angeles residents, from Boyle Heights to Santa Monica, flooded social media with their own